I can think of how, in Norse mythology at least, humanity was created from trees, and also there's like the god Gwydion, whose name means like born of trees. So there is a lot of like, you know, there is some connections with humans like being very connected to like coming from trees.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you live in a condo complex or an apartment complex, you need to make sure that they don't cut your trees down. You see these trees here? These trees actually will shade and block these units from dangerous 5G. When they put these millimeter wave systems in, these trees will be the protection from these emissions. Right now, there is an agenda to cut all trees down everywhere in the city. Now, you need to be involved in your board's decision if you're in an HOA. If you're a property owner and you own a house that's in an HOA and there are trees that they maintain, you make sure they don't cut them down. Your best defense against 5G are trees, folks. Trees block the signals. This is Southern California. And these trees do a lot more than produce oxygen for us to breathe. These trees protect us from what's coming. And they don't grow overnight. Juniper, mulberry, flowering pear, ficus. They don't grow overnight, folks. They take time. Now, here's an area that's unexposed. Don't Brianna, we're out here in front of the Stanton City Hall, Sheriff's Department headquarters, Stanton Park, right next to a series of really high voltage transmission lines, but it's also co-locating some microwave transmitters for cellular and other forms of communication. But the reason I'm here today is to document what's happening here. You know, this civic center is not that old, neither is this parking structure. And what they've done, I'll show you. This civic center used to have some really beautiful trees in front of it. And they've dug them all out. They've stumped them all. With the 5G deployment, you will be noticing that all public right-of-ways, including City Hall and city buildings, will be the locations for the microcell placements. Tree removal is a must. The trees block the millimeter wave frequencies. This City Hall had beautiful trees just last week. Sadly, there's a Boys and Girls Club right across the street from this place where children are in daycare all day. But all the trees are gone. Large, mature, beautiful trees. Why? And you can tell how new this facility is, just several years. Why are they digging this up and ripping everything out? Why? Why are all the trees gone? Why are all the trees gone here? What happened to the beautiful trees? Where'd they go? Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to pay close attention to what lies ahead in the urban areas. Deforestation is coming to a suburban neighborhood near you. You mark my words, folks. You're going to see microcells on this building. You see this house right here? This is what you need to do. You need to plant trees like this everywhere on your property. That's what you need to do. Look at this stump. Look at the size of it. These are beautiful trees. I never thought they would cut these down. There's no reason to. It makes no sense. But you'll notice that all over the United States, they're cutting down trees in urban areas where we need them the most. And the only reason that they're doing it is to make way for the coming 5G, the millimeter wave deployment that cannot take place and successfully irradiate everyone unless they have removed everything that blocks the emissions. That is the plan, ladies and gentlemen. Humanity's under attack. And I'm going to keep talking about this until there's nothing left to do but leave. Because we either have to turn this around or we have to win this battle. They're going to put these 5G transmitters on the light poles, on the power poles, on public buildings, on all public right-of-ways. I'm walking on a utility easement and a city-owned easement, folks. It may be a sidewalk, but they can plant trees, they can erect poles and towers here. This is your best line of defense. What God has given us.
Things are kicking off in Sheffield.
Are you proud of your city?
People have taken to the streets. They're getting arrested. They've been taken to court.
Why?
But they're not backing down.
It's defending our rights in our own street.
And this is the reason. A private company employed by the council is cutting down thousands of what many people say are perfectly healthy trees. I grew up in Sheffield and I've been watching this battle play out online. So I want to know why the leafy suburban streets of my home city, one of the greenest in Europe, have become an urban battlefield.
Who the hell do you think you are?
So I've come home to find out what's going on, to see why Jarvis is getting involved.
They're saying it's your contracts. Julie, can we talk to you?
And to try and get some answers from the people in charge.
Good morning, it's Toby at breakfast. It's BBC Radio Sheffield, where this morning we're asking, what do you make to the way that Sheffield Council is handling the tree row? The 5 o'clock raids.
Council workers arrived in the middle of the night to chop down trees.
The police turned up, knocked on people's doors and told them to get out.
The 74-year-old man arrested for witness intimidation.
This is complete nonsense. What are you arresting for? Complete nonsense.
I mean, I've been bored by 74-year-olds. I've never been intimidated by one.
I can use force or arrest you. Go on then.
It's become a war of attrition involving politicians, a private company, the police and people. Sheffield's known as Pothole City, and almost everyone here agrees the roads are desperately in need of repair. So back in 2012, the council signed a 25-year, £2.2 billion contract with the multinational company Amy to sort them out. But a big part of that contract involves removing thousands of the city's street trees that they say are dangerous, dead, diseased, dying, damaging or discriminatory. The council say these trees will be replaced with saplings, but campaigners say this won't produce anywhere near the same amount of oxygen as this.
There's no hint of damage to the road surface. We cannot...
Paul's one of the leading tree campaigners who's been trying to dig into the details of the contract.
There's literally no reason anyone can see whatsoever for felling this tree. Many of these problems are rectifiable. In the area, only around 10% of the trees that are identified for felling actually need to be. But something in the contract is incentivising Amy to identify trees for felling and incentivising the council to agree.
Well, we're on patrol.
It's 10 AM and Jack and Ken are on lookout duty.
If we spot somebody, we ring up the
tree emergency number.
While we're filming, Ken spots some tree fellers moving in.
Oh shit, they're there.
Does not look good. No barriers going up.
They've just rocked up, police, chippers, everything.
As we arrive, a woman comes out to see what's going on.
How do you feel about it?
I feel all these protesters should leave them to the judge.
So
die at their hazards to people in wheelchairs and sticks.
Right, so you want them to come down?
Yeah.
There you go, Ken. So it's not everyone that wants them to come.
This woman's not alone. There are many residents who support the felling and want this work done. The council took the protesters to court, and it's now illegal for anyone to step inside the zone around the trees. Now the contractor uses private security who use what they say is reasonable force to remove people inside. So far, 2 of the protesters have been found guilty of breaking this ruling, and the council are now going after them for £27,000 worth of legal costs. These people aren't all eco-warriors. They're office workers, pensioners, parents and children.
What do you think about what they're doing to the trees?
I don't like it.
No, why not?
I just don't.
Trees are better off on the street than in the back of that truck, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, can I make sure it gets in?
But it wasn't all so friendly here today.
So, this is a normally quiet, peaceful residential street in Sheffield, as you can just see. Man's been arrested, put in the back of a van. This is a daily occurrence now, almost, in Sheffield.
This woman was arrested on suspicion of causing intentional harm or distress and will have to go to court.
What are you arresting him for?
This 74-year-old man was arrested under suspicion of witness intimidation.
Police. I like the Gestapo.
He was later released without charge.
What are you doing?
When protesters are arrested, they're often released with a condition that they don't return to sites where tree felling is taking place. This woman, who didn't want us to show her face, said her son went to a protest with friends when his school was closed because of the snow, and the police stepped in.
As he arrived, one of the police officers says, there's a minor here, call social services.
Right, yeah.
And lo and behold, social services turned up.
How does that make you feel?
Well, it's exactly how they want to make me feel. Nothing strikes fear into the heart of a parent like a phone call about social services.
South Yorkshire Police say that they have a duty of care when children are present at a site of work and will always contact their parents and council staff to ensure their welfare.
OK, so just got a copy of the local paper, the Sheffield Star. On its front page, 30 police at a tree protest. Enough's enough, they say. Get round the table and solve the felling dispute. It's time to talk. So clearly this debate about police resources on the streets of Sheffield is really starting to hot up.
Why am I being pushed? This is a public footpath.
South Yorkshire Police say the policing of protests comes down to an exercise of balancing competing rights and upholding the law.
I'm trying to walk down this footpath.
They've suggested we speak to the council about it, but the leader of Sheffield City Council, Julie Dorr, hasn't responded to my interview requests, so I tracked her down after a meeting at police headquarters.
Julie? Hi, BBC News. Can we have a word, please? Can we have 1 minute to talk to you about trees?
Sorry, I am far
But Julie, the people of Sheffield are concerned why there's police on the streets.
Oh, that's the police?
No, they're saying it's your contract. Julie, can we talk to you?
So the leader of the council says I should ask the police why there are so many officers on the streets. The police won't give us an interview, but the man in charge of making sure South Yorkshire Police is run effectively wants to talk to me.
The enforcing of the contract is a matter for Sheffield City Council and its contractors. It's not a matter for the police. The police are there to maintain public order, to enable peaceful protests and to allow the workers to go about their lawful business.
We spoke to people who say they feel intimidated by the police and that their police are working on behalf of a private company. We spoke to one woman who said her son had attended a protest on a snow day and later on they had a call from social services.
Well, I think the incident you recount there is serious and therefore ought to be reported, and that can be properly investigated. And likewise, if the people themselves feel they're being intimidated by police or anybody else, that can be investigated too.
Sheffield Council has always said there isn't a target for the amount of trees that will be cut down, but campaigners aren't convinced. They've been trying to see more of the contract, parts of which have been hidden from the public. Then as we're filming, there's a breakthrough.
Sheffield Council has been forced to reveal more details about its controversial tree felling programme.
It turns out that the contract says 17,500, almost half of the city's street trees, will be replaced. The private company Amy say they're willing to talk, but any renegotiation of the contract would result in practical or financial changes.
Now, Councillor Brian Lodge, who's the cabinet member...
Back at Radio Sheffield, the councillor in charge of the roads is denying that this is the case, despite it being written in black and white in a legally binding contract.
The fact that you've kept this from people really smells.
There is no target. Let me tell you again. There is no target.
Well, apart from the target we can all read.
That is not a target. That is to cover the council in case of the requirement to take those number of trees out.
So the council doesn't think this changes anything. They say they're going to carry on doing what the people want.
I am getting letters, I'm getting emails, I'm getting phone calls from people that are telling me that the work needs to be done on their streets, that they want the work done.
It's Friday night, and the tree campaigners are holding a fundraiser to raise money for the 2 protesters who lost their legal battle with the council. Hundreds of people have bought tickets, and some of Sheffield's biggest names are playing this sellout gig.
People get attached to trees. They last longer than people, don't they? So then you see them just chopped down for no reason. It hurts people because it's part of their community, it's part of their neighbourhood. This whole situation is daft, and it's daft to get rid of trees for no reason.
If people hadn't taken to the streets and hadn't come together like they have here tonight, the trees would have come down without any fuss. But politicians, big business and the police all underestimated how much they mean to people. But it's not just about trees, it's about who the streets belong to and where power lies. And for tonight at least, these people think it's with them.
Every time they try and up the ante, more and more people come out because they realise what this is doing to our city.
We're going to win now. That's what I now know.
It's the final countdown. The final countdown.
If you're the band Europe, you love a final countdown.
Whoa! And that exploded!
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
You know what they put in the water, don't you? Fluoride. On the pretext that it strengthens your teeth. That's ridiculous.
I found one of the most shocking things that I found thus far in all the inspections that I've performed for people so far. And here we are on the roof of an architecture firm in this beautiful space that this person lives in. I'm going to show you the first thing right here. Stay back. Radio frequency energy may exceed exposure limits. This person just found out recently that they have cancer, and they've actually been helping their son for the last year or so, who's 25, who also has cancer. And I'm going to show you what is behind this building, and I'm really, really shocked. So here we go. Here's this door, and we're going to just step in here very briefly because it's really intense in here. So this is cell phone towers.
Look at that. It's unbelievable. And again, I'll show you the meter. Sitting here right outside these people's driveway. Now this is also extremely hard to believe. I've now driven down almost a full block, right next to the telephone pole, down a full block, and check this out. I'm going to show you the meter reading. and the meter is still up at 2 and 3 volts per meter in the red on the left-hand side at the peak.
Benjamin Rivas has worked on cell phone towers for 14 years.
Physically burned my hand.
The burn is a work injury you can see.
What you see here is what I would call an everyday crime.
Other problems, he said, caused by the towers aren't as easy to spot.
Depression, and I get headaches from time to time, and mood swings and stuff.
Well, here's what I consider, in my personal opinion, another crime scene. And I don't think I'm being dramatic saying this. Here's the cell phone tower. I want you to notice where this is located. Literally in the parking lot, right next to these stores. There's human beings working in these stores and eating in these restaurants all day long, and there's a cell phone tower right there. That's hitting 1,000 microwatts per square meter, depending on the pulses that are coming off the tower. I'm across the street, as you can see. I wouldn't even want to guess what the radiation exposure is inside of those stores there. And I have the meter set on average, which you can see here it says RMS, which means microwatts per square meter average power density. This is 800, 900 microwatts per square meter. Goes even higher. Once again, biological effects start at 3.4 to 6 microwatts per square meter average power density.
52-year-old Sanjay Kasliwal is counting the days now. Incurable brain cancer due to radiation from mobile phone towers in his neighborhood has reduced life to little more. His brother has been termed luckier, sent to the US for brain surgery, but both of them know hope fades.
I have written to all possible government offices to find out what sort of control are they doing or what sort of an audit is being done, and it seems everything falls on deaf ears. Nobody is concerned.
Experts say the area the two men live in faces radiation from mobile phone towers equivalent to living in a microwave oven 19 minutes a day.
See, the levels were somewhere between minus 18 to minus 20 to 20 dBm also over here, and these radiation levels are very high for prolonged exposure, for almost about 100 times higher than what is recommended for continuous safe exposure. And there are 2 cancer cases which have been reported in this house. There's a dog has got cancer.
It's kind of interesting when cell phone tower workers are telling you that they have headaches, that they have brain cancer, that they have all these health issues throughout the day, where they get these headaches or blurry vision. Why would so many of these guys have these seemingly often problems like this? You would think that if there was nothing really bad about cell phone towers, that obviously those who would work on these towers would be fine. But instead you hear something quite different. And with the readouts with this, 1,000 plus microwatts per square meter measured near one of these cell phone towers, when it only takes about 10 microwatts to even have any effect on you. So we're talking 100 times the threshold for where it actually can cause harm to a person. So it's very interesting, Some people have mentioned that when they've lived near cell phone towers that they've had headaches and depression, and this is also something that these tower workers have mentioned as well, having even depression from doing this. So this also begs the question of whether or not these patents I've shown in a previous video really are something that is being used on some of these towers to where it can actually influence you. These frequencies that they use can cause certain types of emotions and certain types of feelings. At certain frequencies it makes you even potentially depressed feeling, and in other frequencies it can cause you to even become enraged. And why is there so many cell phone towers? And in many cases these cell phone towers, if you put your cell phone
directly towards them in the range, and it doesn't do anything. You go look up the cell phone tower online, it says it's for this certain particular company, let's say Sprint. You go and take your phone over to it, and you have no bars. That doesn't even make any sense. Or even have some of these cell phone towers multiples in a row. Why would you have so many in a row? What's the relevance of that? It's supposed to be covering certain square footage, allegedly, but instead we have them lined up near a highway. Why would they be doing that? Especially not very far apart. So it makes you kind of wonder what they're really for here.
To broadcast the entire Earth, it takes 2 kilowatts, 2 hair dryers. Now a microwave oven uses 1,000 watts, or 1 kilowatt. Here's the damage 1 kilowatt can be done by somebody when they take a magnetron out of a microwave and turn it into a ray gun. This is just a small example of a low-tech weapon running on 1,000 watts. Then you have these things here, these huge towers of death. Now each row in this tower, an array, or a set of dishes or rectennas or whatever you want to call them, is connected to a cable with a maximum power output of 300,000 watts, or 300 kilowatts. That's 300 microwave ovens. We based that conservative estimate based on the gauge of the cabling that's running up to one of these arrays. They're estimated at 300,000 watts per cable. Those aren't fiber optic cables running up to those arrays. It's a thick copper gauge transmission line quality cable running up those towers. Now, if there's 10 cables, that's like 3 megawatts of power. And these cables are out there to output power to the magnetron, not for data transfer. That's an important point. These cell phone towers are weaponized. There's no other reason to have this much power running up the cables. It isn't for data transfer. Now, FCC regulations limit normal transmission per array to about 400 watts. To put that into perspective, 1 watt from your phone can go 25 miles to the nearest tower. A 1,000 watt magnetron on a stick can blow shit up. And these towers have a 300 kilowatt power line running up to each rectenna. And who knows, there could be an amplifier at the top of these towers that steps up the power even more. The point is here, ladies and gentlemen, is that these companies, like Lucent and Google, could turn up the juice at any time and nuke a town. They could nuke the entire country without any warning, without anybody being able to protect themselves.
Now here at America Trends, we talk about what you're talking about on your social media. Our producers spend hours each day not reading the old fake news headlines. You are our incredible reporters, so I want to get right back to it. John McCain recently diagnosed with a brain tumor, as you know, and we see other prominent figures in America like former Vice President Beau Biden, son of former Vice President Beau Biden, who, as you know, died of brain cancer. But it's not just politicians. It happens to people across the country, and some studies have shown a link between brain cancer and cell phone use. So I wondered, when I saw what had happened with John McCain, if it could have anything to do with that. So I called in the expert here with me now to discuss California Brain Tumor Association, and We Are the Evidence, bioinitiative.org, Kevin Modis. Kevin, the John McCain, is it any coincidence? Is there any way it's coincidence that the scar he has is like right here, and this is all happening right here, and that happens to be right where you put a cell phone?
Yeah, just like you said, Gina, the scar is right down his face, exactly where you would hold your cell phone. And you need to understand, he had a glioblastoma. And while the wireless industry says there's no increase in brain tumors, so there's no problem with cell phones, the reality is there's a significant increase in glioblastomas. Unfortunately, they're very, very deadly.
So whether curing some sorts of brain cancer, they can come up with these statistics that say there's no increase in brain cancer, when you're saying there has been a dramatic increase in the one specifically related to cell phone radiation.
Yeah, and the glioblastomas have been related to cell phone use by a scientist and medical doctor, Leonard Hardell, and people can go to his blog, Hardell blog, And he's one of the leading scientists, has a group that has been doing research for a long time, and has significantly shown a relationship between cell phone use and these GBMs, or glioblastomas. The other thing is the wireless industry says there hasn't been any increase in brain tumors, and for the overall head, there hasn't been an increase. But in the 3 areas of the brain that get the most cell phone radiation, okay, your frontal lobe, your temporal lobe, and your cerebellum, the increase is significant in a study that was done by USC all the way up for the 15 years before 2006. Now, that's up to 2006. Now, think about how much people have been using wireless since 2006.
Yeah, and your Bluetooth doesn't change this, right?
No, it doesn't, because it still transmits to the cell phone.
As much?
Not as much, but you still have a transmitter in your ear. And as one technician said, why don't you explain to him, your ear is a hole in your head, and those microwaves go right into your head.
So I don't really like to talk on my phone, and the reason is because I get a headache when I talk on my phone. And people get really frustrated with me that I almost refuse to talk on my cell phone. Unless it's an emergency with one of my children, I pretty much don't do it. And if I do it, I will use the speaker function. Am I safe?
Well, you're not safe, and you're a great example of neurological effects from wireless radiation. The same kind of neurological effects, the FCC, don't exist, and this is the big problem. The FCC regulates wireless radiation human exposure levels, and the fact is the FCC has no one qualified to assess safety for us. Yet they're saying it's safe, and they've set a standard that's too high. It's a thermal standard. Thermal and above. If it doesn't heat you or burn you, it doesn't hurt you. And as you know, your phone doesn't heat or burn you, but yet you still have biological effects. People are getting neurological effects. People are getting cancer from wireless radiation. People are getting immune system problems, and fertility is affected, basically affecting all systems of the body. And people just go to that website you talked about, bioinitiative.org. This looks at 3,600 studies and breaks it down by different sections of the body and shows you there's definitely evidence that wireless radiation is very, very harmful and should be minimized rather than maximized, which the FCC is doing in concert with the wireless industry and their lobby group, CTIA.
But it's actually scarier than that, because even if you're not using a cell phone at all, they're putting towers up all over the country without your permission. You used to have to sign something, and you saw those little green tree-looking things that were cell towers, you know, and if they were going to put them within a certain radius of your house, you had to sign off of them. Not the case anymore. Tell us.
Yeah. So there's a new wireless technology, 5G. So right now we're at a lower frequency, like 1 to 3 gigahertz. This is now 24 to 90 gigahertz. Just to put that in perspective, 90 gigahertz is 90 billion electromagnetic waves per second hitting and going through your cells every second. That is far from natural. Your heart has a circuit, has electricity to it. Your brain has electricity to it. It's about 8 to 10 hertz. This is billions of times more than what's natural. And 5G is being forced on us. In California, SB 649 is going to make it so they can put one of these transmitters in front of your house. And 5G doesn't travel very well because it's very dense. And so they have to put a transmitter about every 2 to 10 homes. And they're not going to ask you about it. They're just going to put it in front of you, exempt from any health, safety, or environmental review.
On street lights.
On street lights, on poles in front of your house, on any kind of fixture that can get what they want. And it's not going to be your choice. There's not going to be any consent. And I got to tell you, it's not a very Republican thing to do. It's not a very American thing to do. And these bills are stripping away your constitutional rights to protect yourself and your families. But this goes way back. The 1996 Telecommunications Act that was passed in 1996 by Bill Clinton had Section 704 that banned by law looking at health and safety when they put cell towers in. This is how they built out the whole network. They've known about health effects for decades.
This is Orwellian.
Absolutely. It's a concerted, concentrated effort to hide wireless radiation health effects. And it's absolutely time it stops. 5G is we're looking at a worst-case scenario. High-frequency, high-intensity wireless in front of your home, in close proximity, continuously. What's interesting is the Army, and people should look this up. Look up the active denial system. The active denial system. The military is using these frequencies at 95 gigahertz. And remember, they're talking about 24 to 90 gigahertz for this as a biological weapon for crowd control. So on the one hand, the FCC is saying it's completely harmless. On the other hand, the military is using it as a biological weapon. Somebody's lying. And what's interesting for your audience to look at is their own insurance policy. Look at your homeowner's insurance. Look in the back under general exclusions. You'll see asbestos isn't covered by insurance. Earthquakes aren't covered by insurance. Fires aren't covered by some insurance. And then you'll see electromagnetic radiation or electromagnetic waves, the kind of emitted from wireless technology. So the industry, the insurance industry that is given the mandate to assess risk has assessed it as a high-risk agent and says they won't cover biological effects from wireless radiation, yet they're putting the exact same thing near your home, next to your head, in your schools, and it's absolutely wrong, and it's time we do something. The industry is now pushing it with Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, and he's now said, I'm going to speed up the siting of these small cell transmitters. He's met with AT&T and Verizon and all those. AT&T invested $16 million in lobbying last year. We don't have the kind of resources to get a meeting. One of the reasons I came to meet with you was to say to you, please help me get a meeting with President Trump. I believe he has the guts and the courage, and he cares enough about the average person to say no to these transmitters and say yes to making this technology safer.
If we can get the word out to him.
If we can meet with him.
Yeah. Well, you have taken this so seriously that you've literally dedicated your life to this. This is your life's work. But aside from meeting with the president, which of course has to be a goal if we're going to change policy, I know you've also met with many legislators. How can we, the average citizen, be the most effective? Because honestly, the information is overwhelming.
Okay. So half the states now have these bills called the Wireless Telecommunications Facilities Act, designed on a state level to strip your rights away and put these little cell transmitters in front of your house. By the way, they're not so little. They can be as large as a refrigerator with a power source included. People need to get politically active. It's time to get off the couch. It's time to take a stand.
These service personnel, playing the role of an unruly mob at Georgia's Moody Air Force Base, are about to fall prey to an invisible ray. The hulking panel atop this Humvee is part of what the U.S. military calls the Active Denial System, or ADS. It's designed to incapacitate enemy combatants with an unnerving, non-lethal sensation of intense heat. Watch as the ray silently strikes and scatters the crowd.
The Active Denial System has three great characteristics. First of all, it's safe. Second, it's effective. And third, it has a tremendous range compared to the other non-lethal weapons that today's warfighter has.
This is the heart of this 100 kilowatt transmitter. This is the gyrotron. 200 kilowatts of electricity is fed in, and 100 kilowatts of radio frequency comes out. That millimeter wave energy comes out an aperture underneath the main reflector, hits the subreflector, which illuminates that main reflector and sends a roughly antenna-sized beam downrange. Those holes that you see in the antenna are for the cameras and other visual equipment that the operator uses so that he knows exactly where that beam is going.
It's operated by a joystick. The operator looks into the console, sees exactly what that antenna is aimed at, moves the joystick left, the antenna slews to the left, same way to the right. Then when there's an individual who's identified as a troublemaker, he has a cursor. He can put that cursor on that individual, pull the trigger that's on the joystick, and the energy is sent downrange at the speed of light.
The electromagnetic radiation released by the Active Denial System is similar to the microwaves in your microwave oven, in that it causes the water molecules in the target to become excited and heat up. But that's where the similarity ends. The ADS is designed to heat only the very surface of the skin. It does this by outputting only the carefully chosen radio wave frequency of 95 gigahertz. Even though it can easily penetrate clothing, the ADS generates a much shorter and safer wavelength of radio waves than those used in microwave ovens.
The Active Denial System millimeter wave directed energy beam reaches 1/64th of an inch into human skin. So that is the outermost layer of the skin, roughly equivalent to about 3 sheets of notebook paper. It is essentially affecting the pain nerves in the outermost layer of the skin, heating them up and causing an immediate repel effect.
Even these stoic servicemen, aware of what's about to happen,
engage,
can't help but flinch when they feel the heat.
This is the first time I've experienced the beam from the Active Denial System, and it feels like an intense warmth feeling, kind of similar to opening a very hot oven door, and it's a compelling feeling that you want to get out of the way of this beam. If you were not expecting this, it would definitely shock you and make you want to move.